Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you as always for stopping by. I did an interview with Stephen Jennings, who's the founder and CEO of Rendeavour. Rendeavour are conducting a number of large-scale projects across the continent, one here in Nairobi, just outside Nairobi in Tatu City. And in case you're interested as to who is Stephen, I worked with him many years ago at Credit Suisse First Boston, did some work with him whilst he was in Russia, known him a long time, and I got a short clip up there to just give you a bit of background to who he is. Obviously there's been a significant decision out of the arbitration court in London, and that's worth looking into as well. Macro thoughts: Chinese central bank official tells Bloomberg that the yuan won't be weaponized in a trade war, and that's an important statement. Home thoughts: a lion in the snow. Photo from the Aquila game reserve in the Western Cape. First snowfall there in 10 years. That's from Jeffrey York. And if you've not watched Derek and Beverly Joubert's extraordinary tale of lions in Botswana, you simply must. It's called The Last Lions. It's one of the first links on Rich Wrap-Ups. This caught my attention. Namib Sky Balloon Safaris, supplying us with eye candy since 1991. Political reflections: here is where the ex-Prime Minister NajibRazak will be spending the night, that was last night, at basement lockup before he's produced before KL Sessions Court tomorrow to face 5 charges, including criminal breach of trust, abuse of power, and receiving gratification, charges that will put him behind bars for years. He was arrested at his private residence by anti-corruption officers, and it took me to that Latin phrase, sic transit Gloria Mundi. Arrest of former Malaysian Prime Minister NajibRazak on charges of massive corruption is a warning to all autocrats who act as if their day will never come. Kenneth Roth. And I go back to yesterday's article I referenced, which was by Pankaj Mishra, and in that he said, likewise, political energy is imperceptibly built up in Malaysia, where in May young people, 40% of the electorate, helped unseat their outrageously sleazy Prime Minister NajibRazak. Shadowed by public suspicion since 2006, when 2 of his bodyguards murdered a Mongolian model, Najib was still being described in 2010 by The Economist as a British-educated economist who was supposedly a more sure-footed and less scandal-prone leader than many expected. Najib is now accused of purloining nearly $700 million from the state exchequer, spending part of it on Hermes handbags for his wife. The general loathing of venal, nepotistic and unaccountable elites grew so intense in Malaysia that it overcame even the country's entrenched loyalties and patronage networks that had, as in Mexico, kept the same party in power for decades. And it's a significant development. China's political warfare aims at South China Sea. When the arbitral tribunal at The Hague ruled in 2016 that China's claim to most of the South China Sea was illegal under international law, Beijing's propaganda organs angrily stated that Beijing will neither acknowledge nor accept the ruling. 2 years later, in the wake of a rising outcry against China's rapid militarization of the contested maritime region, the Global Times mouthpiece newspaper thundered in June that China will act tougher with foreign naval vessels traversing the South China Sea, and that its firmer posture could lead to military conflicts. China's propaganda organs are doing precisely what propaganda organs are designed to do: implement, including via threats, Beijing's political warfare. A little understood but vital weapon in China's growing arsenal aimed at achieving regional and global hegemony. China's worldwide political warfare is a critical component of its security strategy and foreign policy. With well-orchestrated political warfare campaigns, China has achieved significant successes in tilting the regional and even global balance of power in recent years. Only recently have a few countries been willing to acknowledge it and confront it. If, as military theorist Karl von Clausewitz wrote, war is the extension of politics by other means, then it's fair to say that China's political warfare is an extension of armed conflict by other means. Doctrinally, China will employ political warfare before, during, and after any hostilities it initiates in the South China Sea. In this photograph, you see warships and fighter jets of China's People's Liberation Army Navy take part in a military display in the South China Sea. I wrote about China in August 2017. My piece was called China Rising, and I said apart from a few half-hearted and timid FONOPs, China has established control over the South China Sea. It has created artificial islands and then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance, any which way you can't cut it. The State Department's request to send Marines to Taiwan irks China. This is from military.com. And apparently, according to a report in the AP, Donald Trump pressed his aides about a Venezuela invasion by US troops. International markets, the world is getting flatter, at least in the bond markets. US 2s 10s yield spread drops to 31 basis points. Germany 2s 10s yield drops below 100 basis points. This has been a trend that's been in play most of this year. Currency markets, let's take a look at those. Euro dollar 116.38, come off the boil a little bit. Dollar index 94.52. Japanese yen 110.49. Swiss franc 0.9917. The pound 132.12. The Australian dollar 0.7385. India rupee 68.575. South Korean won 11.1510. Brazilian real 389.85, Egyptian pound 17.9115, South African rand 13.6244. A little bit of a rebound in these higher beta currencies, but will it last is another question. Dollar index, this is a 3-month chart. It's been doing quite a bit of work around these levels. As you can see, it might go a tad lower, I think. 30-year Bund yields have dropped below 1% to the lowest level in 14 months. On speculation that the ECB will introduce an Operation Twist, reinvest proceeds from maturing bonds into longer-dated securities after it ends its asset purchase program. Euro dollar, this chart is from T Commodity, 115.10, 115.15 has held twice when we've tested the downside. We're currently at 116.40. Bearish signal for European financials. This is from Queen of Charts. Let's move on to gold, which is very interesting. Dipped below 1240 momentarily yesterday and then rebounded. We're now at 1257. Oil, that's down at $72.56 in New York, having topped $75 a barrel yesterday intraday, which was the first time since November 2014. On the 13th of November last year, I wrote about geopolitical risk biting back hard, and I said I predicted the spot crude oil market reprices further to run. And at that time, I was talking about Brent crude topping $70, and we went substantially higher. Despite current decline in sugar, commercials hold largest short position since April 2017. This could get really ugly, says Peter L. Brandt. Uber is in talks with Careem to merge in the Middle East. A Bloomberg currency index measuring carry trade returns from 8 developing markets funded by short positions in the greenback slumped 8.8%. in the April-June quarter, the most since 2011. India's ramped-up electronics imports are pushing the nation's trade deficit wider. Interesting article in the Wall Street Journal about Abraj, The close relationship between KPMG and Abraj raises red flags. And speaking about that relationship, moving on to Africa, Mogadishu moves on as young people now enjoy the much improved security as they show their full potential. This is basketball. Look at this red carpet for Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza. South Sudan, President Kiir asks the national parliament to amend the constitution and extend his term for another 3 years without elections. Kiir's term in office is due to expire by August. South Sudan has never had any presidential elections ever since becoming an independent nation in 2011. You know what I think of it. Africa, Uganda introduces unpopular social media tax. Ugandans scramble to use VPNs to dodge paying the tax. A VPN comparison site says the number of Ugandan visitors to its service rose 1,567%. DR Congo, the security situation continues to deteriorate in several regions across the country with dramatic impact on civilians. That's the UN Rights Chief, Zaid. On the 2nd of January, I said I like what I'm seeing in Angola. That Euromoney report had Angola jumping over 20 places in terms of attractiveness. And interestingly, according to Bloomberg, Angola's halved the currency gap with the black market. Foreign currency shortage in Angola, an OPEC member, is easing as oil prices approach $80 a barrel, and the central bank weakens the kwanza. The gap between the official value and the black market rate on the streets of the capital, Luanda, has almost halved to 33% from 61% at the start of the year. The business's ability to access dollars is gradually normalizing, said the governor of the Banco Nacional de Angola. And as I said, on the 2nd of January, I'm keen on being long Angolan risk. The devil is in the detail of the execution, however. Now it said I would probably look to be long Angolan Eurobonds. Glencore plunged after US authorities demanded files related to possible corruption and money laundering. I don't think the US could have been very happy with the Glencore proposal to pay Dan Gertler in euros as a way of escaping the coercive financial dragnet. US's coercive financial dragnet. South African all shares down 3.39% year-to-date. Dollar versus rand, last time I checked, 13.6244. Egyptian pound, 17.9115. There were heavy foreign outflows from Nigeria's stock exchange in May, according to NSE Nigeria data. $363 million of gross outflows, the most since at least the start of 2014. The Nigerian all shares down 1.67% year to date. Ghana's stock exchange composite index is up 11.65% year to date. Startups in Africa have already raised more money in 2018 than they did last year. This is Quartz. Halfway through the year, 118 deals completed. Startup funding on the continent has reached $168.6 million, surpassing last year's total of $167.7 million, according to a report by WeTracker. Total funding is also nearly a fourfold increase on the $47.2 million raised in the first half of 2017. Fintech remains the most attractive sector as investors continue to bet on the promise of startups focused on making payments and banking easier in Africa. Fintech also accounts for 4 of the 10 largest deals completed this year, receiving $95 million in funding, more than half of the total amount raised on the continent. In the 2 largest deals, Cellulant, a digital payment solutions company which operates in 11 African countries, raised $47.5 million in its Series C round, while Branch, an online micro-lending platform, has raised $20 million. Even though Nigeria was the biggest funding destination for volume of deals, with 29 completed, Kenya accounted for the most funds raised with $82.8 million, nearly 3 times the total of funding received by Nigerian startups. Ethiopia's dams threaten thousands of Kenyans, this is Lake Turkana, some 300,000 Kenyans who depend on Turkana, the world's biggest desert lake, could run short of drinking water and fish if Ethiopia moves ahead with plans to construct 2 more dams on a river upstream, activists said. UNESCO has put Kenya's Lake Turkana on its list of endangered World Heritage Sites last week because of the disruptive effect of an existing Ethiopian dam and irrigated sugar estates over Kenya's northern border. Let's move on to Kenya. Yvonne Mahango, who's the economist at Renaissance Capital, upgraded her Kenya forecast. This is an image that was provided by John Aglianby. Aglianby quoting the American ambassador Bob Godek, corruption is the cancer killing this country and needs to be stopped. I said to the FT a week ago, it's as plain as day that the termite economy, where institutions are being eaten from within, has expanded under this administration and needs to be arrested. I attended a Moody's East Africa Finance Summit this morning. In that, I learned that mobile commerce has overtaken mobile peer-to-peer payments, according to Christos of Moody's. Kenya fund managers are warning about this new transaction tax may curb investment. So of course it's going to curb investment. Demand that a 0.5% tax be paid on amounts in excess of 500,000 shillings that move through the financial system, dubbed by Rotich as a Robin Hood tax, could cut investment returns in the pension industry by as much as 5%. The likely impact of this action is asset shrinkage, reduction in private savings, and because it actually incentivizes investors to minimize trading activity, a decline in the liquidity of our capital markets. That's exactly right. And this was something I wrote about a few weeks ago, and I said, why are you killing the goose that is laying the golden eggs? According to Habil Olaka, the rate cap effectively benefits the rich, not Wanjiku. All the surveys reveal that the law is not achieving the intended objective, but instead precipitated tight conditions of lending, occasioning a 2% credit expansion in the private sector, down from 20% in 2015. Moreover, in the space of a year, we've seen 1.2 million fewer loans. The average loan size also increased by 47%, a shift towards big business, middle and upper class borrowers. Seitan observed that while the caps may solve the issue of bank spreads, it would lock out SMEs and other high-risk borrowers, and that the law is based on an unreasonable premise that the highest extra risk premium in the Kenyan market is 4%. Nairobi All Share is negative for the year, minus 0.82%. It's dropped 13.619% since hitting a record high on April 5. NSE 20 is down 11.62%. Vogue magazine has an article, The Kenyan Cool Girl's Guide to Nairobi. For every 100 shillings, you get 1 litre of the freshest milk in Wajir County, she says, opening a vending machine advertising fresh, hygienic and affordable camel milk. Apparently it's the next big thing. It's good for diabetes, blood pressure and indigestion. And finally, a competition regulator approves the Vivo buyout of Engen Kenya, but saying the proposed deal is unlikely to skew competition among oil marketers in the country. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful.